Look, this ain't hype, this a holy flex. Try to count us out, no we come for next. We ain't loud for sure, this that quiet threat. We got the million, yeah, we been a set. The million is dope, they know now. We was low key, we glow now.
Hey fam, it's Pastor Nate, and this is Dominion Bible Study. And I want to welcome you back to the next 40. Last week, we talked about fear and how the disciples were behind locked doors, and Jesus stepped right into that room, and he spoke peace right in the middle of their situation. But now we're going to shift again, because this week it's not just fear, it's doubt. And this is real, because there are moments where you really want to believe, you're really trying to believe, but you're just not all the way there yet. So today we're going to talk about that space. And as you see, we're not on the clock again, so let's get into it. Come with me to John chapter number 20 in the New Living Translation. Verse number 24 says, one of the 12 disciples, Thomas, nicknamed the twin, was not with the others when Jesus came. Now, let's not hurry past that here. Thomas wasn't there. Same moment we talked about last week, all right? It was the same room. It was the same encounter. Here's the difference. Thomas missed it. That matters, because absence is always going to create questions. Everybody else had an experience. Thomas got a report. You know what I'm saying? They saw Jesus. He heard about it. And it's hard to believe something that you weren't there for. All right? I mean, come on, y'all. Let's keep it real. Absence messes with you, not because you don't care. That ain't it. It's because you weren't in the room when it happened, this FOMO. And now you're trying to process something that you didn't experience. And that's where doubt starts to grow. It's not always in rebellion. Sometimes it's distance, because there's a difference between hearing about God and experiencing Him for yourself. And at some point, your faith is going to have to move from they said to I know, because borrowed belief is only going to take you so far. There comes a moment where you need your own encounter. All right. So verse number 25 says, they told him, we've seen the Lord. But he replied, I won't believe it unless I see the nail wounds in his hands, put my fingers into them, and put my hand in the wound in his side. Now, that's strong, bro. He didn't say I'm struggling to believe. He said, I will not believe it unless I see it, unless I touch it, unless I experience it for myself. Now, if we're being honest, that might sound a little extreme, but we do the same thing. We just say it differently. God, I'll trust you when I see it work. I'll believe you when it makes sense. I'll step out when I feel secure. And then we start putting conditions on our faith. Now, here's the problem with that. Faith and control don't work together, because the moment you have to see everything first, it's no longer faith. It's now become confirmation. And some of us aren't really struggling with belief. We're struggling with control. We don't just want God to move. We want to understand how he's going to do it before he does it. And if we're honest, we don't like to admit that, but we've all had that exact moment where we're trying to believe, but something in us is fighting it, where what we see does not match what we've been told. Listen, I remember when I was younger, all right, this is my story. My mom and I, we were going through a tough time financially, and she didn't say that we were, but I knew. And, you know, she just kept it moving, kept showing up, kept doing what she always did. But I knew we're in a fight. I remember being frustrated because at that particular time in our church, people were getting called out left and right, and Bishop would call them out, and then the saints would run down and bless them and give them money. And I'm watching that happen for other people. And I'm thinking, but what about my mom? I've seen her faithfulness. I've seen her service. I've seen her give all the prayers she's prayed. God, I know you know what we need, so why not her? And if I'm honest, man, it was messing with me bad, because I believed, but I didn't understand. I believed, but man, I had questions. And then one day, after all that time, God called her name. And when I tell you he blessed us abundantly. But here's the part that stayed with me. God heard every prayer that we prayed before that moment, every quiet struggle, every unseen sacrifice, every moment where it felt like nothing was happening. God was already working. Even in my doubt, God had a plan to reveal himself in time. All right. So let me bring that back to the text because it's hard to believe something that you haven't seen yet. And doubt will grow in space where experience is missing. Don't miss that. Thomas wasn't crazy. He just hadn't had his moment yet. All right. He wasn't extreme. He just needed his moment. And here's the part that we don't talk about enough. There was a gap. 8 days. 8 days of hearing. We saw him. 8 days of sitting with that report. 8 days of wondering, what if it's true? But I'm still not convinced. And that's real. Because sometimes God doesn't respond immediately. Listen, I'm a witness. Not because he's ignoring you, but because he's building something in you while you wait. Because what happens in the waiting reveals what's really in your heart. Do you walk away? Do you shut down? Do you disconnect? Or do you stay close even while you're unsure? Verse 26 says, 8 days later, the disciples were together again, and this time Thomas was with them. The doors were locked, but suddenly, as before, Jesus was standing among them. Peace be with you, he said. Don't miss that. Jesus comes back again. Same room, same doors, same greeting. But this time, he's coming for one person. Thomas, I'm coming for you. So that tells me Jesus will revisit a room, thank you, Jesus, just to reach you. If you missed a moment, that does not mean that you miss God. If you weren't ready then, that doesn't mean he's done with you. God is not limited to one moment in your life. Thank you, Jesus. To one moment in your life, he will come back around and meet you again right where you are. Verse 27 says, then he said to Thomas, put your finger here. Look at my hands. Put your hand in the wound in my side. Don't be faithless any longer. Believe. Now that's wild. Jesus repeats exactly what Thomas said, word for word. But Thomas didn't say it again, which means this. Jesus heard him even when he wasn't in the room. He heard his doubt. He heard his frustration. He heard his questions. And instead of rejecting him, he responded to him. All right? God ain't afraid of your question. He's not intimidated by your doubt. God would rather deal with your real doubt than your fake faith. Because fake faith looks good on the outside, but it never produces anything real. But when you bring your real struggle, your real questions, your real uncertainty, now that's something God can work with. Because now you're being honest. And honesty is where real faith starts. You got to keep it real with yourself. So verse 28 says, my Lord and my God, just like that. One encounter changed everything. Because doubt doesn't mean you'll never believe. Just means you haven't had your encounter yet. All right. Then Jesus says in verse 29, you believe because you've seen me. But blessed are those who believe without seeing me. That's us. We didn't walk with him physically. We didn't see the wounds in person, but we still believe. And Jesus says there's a blessing in that. All right. So let's put a bow on this. Let's put it all together. Week 1, they didn't recognize him. All right. Last week, we talked about how they were afraid, even though he was there. Now, this week, Thomas hears about him, but he's not convinced yet. So now we see it clearly. God can be present and you not recognize him. God can be present and you still feel fear. And God can be moving and you still have questions. But none of that changes the fact that he's still God. So here's the question for this week. What are you waiting to see before you believe? What conditions have you set And are you willing to bring that to Jesus instead of hiding it from him? Because you don't have to fake faith. You just have to bring it to him. And he'll meet you right where you are. All right, fam. That was chapter 3 of the Next 40, our series on the 40 days after the resurrection. Please make sure you join us next week because we're shifting from doubt to direction. We're going to talk about what happens when you don't know what to do next and you find yourself going back to what you used to do. All right? You don't want to miss that one. Okay? Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, and as always, please keep dominating on purpose every day. Dominion is dope, and so are you. I love you, fam, and I'll see you next week already.
Dominion is dope, they know now. We was low key, we glow now. Anointed the way, it flow now. Favor too loud, can't tone down. Dominion is dope, they heard it. This ain't for license purpose. We came from dirt, made worship, and we gon' fold with surface. Dominion is dope, they